meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is to not be considered a public community meeting. Uniontown Local School District Policy 0165.1. Please stand for the pledge if you would like. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may be seated. Item number 2, opening ceremony. Do I have a volunteer to do the mission statement?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
Our mission is to foster a community of learning and belonging. Our vision is to be a learning community centered on strengths and possibilities to empower our students and staff to think critically, grow intellectually, and live with integrity.
Thank you, Jamie. Item number 3, additions to and approval of the agenda. May I have a motion, please? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Anything we need to add?
That looks like
I know the one that you added,
included
yes.
For change orders.
Yes, 10.1. Okay. All those in favor of amending the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 4, approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of January 27, 2025, and the special meeting of February 13, 2025. Do you have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion here, guys?
Is it?
Anything? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 5, administrative report. That comes to you.
So tonight I want to start with some celebrations and things going on around the district. Allerton came out, there are communications, they came out a couple weeks ago, and it was the same day as Wildcat Wellness, pep run. And they took a lot of video, did some interviews with some people actually in this, and they're putting together a compilation for us that we'll share in small bites through social media about Life in Newtown. And so I got a glimpse of the first one, and they look fantastic, so that will be coming soon. Also, Jalecia had asked, so I would like to, it's about 6.5, 7 minutes in. One of the things, we had our long-range facility planning meeting back in November, and one of the things we got feedback on was how do we share more about the projects going on around the campuses and how we're maintaining our facilities. And so Grant agreed to go on this little excursion, and so we started short videos that will also be shared. Some have already been shared, but to update the community in a video format, we thought that might be a little bit more digestible and in small bites. So I'm going to share the first one with you all this evening. And this is available. The other thing I would say, we have a landing page now on our, if you go to our Town website and go to About, there is now a landing page for facilities updates. So any updates, whether they're in written format or video, can be found there.
Welcome to our video series on the facilities of Finneytown Local School District. I'm Grant Anderson, Director of Business Operations, and joining me is our Superintendent, Ward Nex. Together, we'll explore how our facilities not only support student success, but also reflect our commitment to fiscal responsibility.
That's right, Grant. In this series, we'll take you behind the scenes to highlight recent updates, ongoing projects, and future plans for our school buildings and grounds. We'll also share how we are prioritizing the stewardship of district resources to ensure investments in facilities align with the needs of our students and the expectations of our community.
Whether you're a parent, a student, a staff member, or community partner, we hope this series provides valuable insight into how we create safe, welcoming, and innovative spaces. Let's go.
I'm joined by Grant Anderson, our Director of Business Operations. Grant, we're in our boardroom here at Brent Elementary. As the community may know, Brent Elementary was not originally a part of our master plan, and the plan was to abate and demolition it. Can you tell us a little bit about how we ended up here as our new district office?
Yeah, sure. So have been working for a while on our secondary campus building, and as part of that, we realized we needed to have additional space to place the new building. And so early on in the process, we determined we needed that space where our current district office, or our old district office was, at secondary campus. And so at that point, we started looking at different spaces for us to go. We knew we needed to move before the demolition needed to begin. But then we ran into some technical things with our old space where our sewer lines were just totally done. Looking at our space, we didn't have any kind of foyer or welcoming area. We had really small office spaces. We had one small meeting room that could seat maybe 6 people. And so last year, as we were kind of developing, things and looking at next steps, it came to a point in March that we just needed a new space. And as we looked at Brent, we realized great resource we had here, and at least for the short term, we would shift from secondary campus over to the Brent building and start having our offices over here. So.
And literally this happened within a week's span of time over spring break last school year, and kudos to everyone who helped with that transition for sure.
Yeah.
And now we've been in here about 8 months, and definitely has become our new home. Talk a little bit about this boardroom space that we're sitting in now.
Yeah, sure. So one of the first things we moved over here, we got offices set up in classrooms, but then the other big need we had as a team and for our community was to have a space to hold board meetings as well as other staff and community and student engagements. And so the old media center was the most apt space for that. And so what we did is we came in and just our internal fitting down team, maintenance team, we removed everything from the room, all of our old cabinetry out the walls, our old circulation desk, and we came back and we painted everything. I designed this wall behind us and had that made, and then new carpeting put in. The other nice things we did put into the room is flexible furniture. So some of the chairs that we're sitting on right now, they all roll. Our tables all roll and stack, and so we can quickly transition this space from board meeting into circle, into some type of student meeting. We can host parties in here. We can host all sorts of different events, and so this has really been just a really for us. The other parts of the room that we did install, we installed a microphone, which is above our head right now, and 3 different and tilt zoom lenses. We're capturing board meetings as well as student project presentations and all sorts of things. So really has become kind of a cool space for us.
Yeah, I definitely like hosting meetings here and gatherings because it is so flexible. I know we've hosted several Pro Action cafes in this space, and it's been well received and a great space. I will say the other thing, there's still so many possibilities here at Brent. And I know there are a lot of things we're exploring and having conversations about. I know we started hosting our youth advisory council over here. All kinds of things. We have a meeting with Healthcare Connections next week.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, lots of great things coming for the building, which is awesome to kind of breathe new life into a space that sat quiet for a year or two. And really cool to see how different programs and or opportunities that we have as a district, we are able to bring them in-house over here. And so that's kind of really the big thing for the community to know is we are just looking at the possibilities of the space. What can we do with the Brent building as a whole, apart from having some office space, but really being integral into what we're doing with kids. And so that's really our focus over the next several months and coming years. So, and we'll see how long we end up being here. So right now we know probably 3 to 5 years and possibly long term.
All right. We'll have more video shoots coming to you soon from Brent to show how other spaces in the building are being used. With that, take care.
Thank you for that.
And definitely. All right, you take one and pass them down. The other thing that Allerton has helped with that you can look forward to, it'll be posted in
on our website and shared out through a community update is a quarterly update regarding the work we're doing around the strategic plan. And so I won't read all of it, but some of the highlights, we started our Neighborhood Bridges Partnership and Program, which is just a way for us to connect our community with the needs and for our families. We also hosted a literacy night during this period of time. What else we got on here? And then in terms of the facilities, we've been talking about it, but we did receive a budget adjustment through the OFCC to offset some of the escalation in the secondary campus project. So all of those are positives. There are more, look for it coming soon. Cinderella, I wanted to highlight that. It was posted. Cinderella will be coming the weekend of March 14th, 15th, and 16th. If you are interested, please come out and support our students. They're incredibly talented and always put on a fantastic show. I had the opportunity to watch the Thursday special board meeting. I wanted to clear up a few things. The calendar was reviewed with the union, and the union did vote on the calendar. So that was all done prior to bringing it to you. I wanted to confirm that. Fair school funding that is on the board agenda tonight. That was a resolution. Now the government, or DeWine and the legislator is not looking at fully funding that as was originally promised. So the superintendents in Hamilton County got together and we're trying to ask our board if they're so inclined to pass this resolution saying, please fully fund the fair school funding. And then they're going to take those collectively to Senator Blessing. We have actually a legislative breakfast this Thursday where he will be in attendance. So that's what that is intended for, placed on there. In addition to that, just so everyone knows, and school finance is very complicated, and I leave that conversation to Dave, but I will say, right now, the way it is, we're on the guarantee, so this doesn't necessarily impact us directly, but it does impact our neighbors, and so it's just a show of camaraderie and support for our other public schools. So.
And it could affect us down the line.
And it could impact us later.
Is it a decrease in the per pupil funding? Is that the?
Staying at the current cost set, and it's also looking at a decrease in the percentage of what they had initially set. So
Okay, so a reduction. This is what they're proposing.
not a reduction in what was anticipated, not a reduction from what it currently is.
Okay.
However, now we're still learning. I have a webinar next Monday regarding the budget that DeWine put out and how it will impact our schools, which it will impact our schools.
But not
And
the
probably not in a
private
positive way.
schools.
But that,
But not the billion going to private schools.
right, yes. So I'll have more on that at our next meeting once I learn more, but that's a little bit about that resolution. I also, and I want to do this publicly, owe Seth an apology. I did not realize we had 2 members on the committee, so that was my error in not including you in our meeting with Neola, with Norm, so that will not happen again.
Again, I appreciate it.
The other thing I did want to follow up on is the policy committee, or the policy discussion on 7421, which is the bathroom bill, or the bathroom policy. The signage that was discussed, I've had an initial conversation with both Gerald and Grant, and we've planned for that, so I know that was something that was discussed. Just know that conversation has already started, and we've got things, a plan to put things in place to be compliant. That law goes into effect February 25th. I know there was some conversation, so share that. Few other highlights. Wildcat Wellness, if you saw it, it was a fantastic event. There are some videos out there that are pretty entertaining. I implore you to watch them. We are getting ready. We had a meeting right before this for our building connections, which was Stronger Connections last year. That will be taking place March 6th and March 20th. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know our team's in. We will have 2 sessions. We'll have a morning at 9:30 and an evening session at 6 on both of those dates. That will be sent out to the community by the end of this week. But the intent of that program, just as a reminder, is to welcome new families in to Finneytown through who will be planning to send their kindergartners here next year. And so it was well received last year, and we're excited to offer it again this year.
And those dates are March 6th and March 30th?
March 6th and March 20th. And that'll happen here at Brent. So. And
The fair school funding, is that on our agenda tonight? I was looking for it. I don't think
I
that's
believe it
it.
is.
No, it's after the system challenges.
It's item G.
Paragraph.
Okay, it's under G, that's what it is,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
In the consent calendar.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and then I did want to share just feedback. We did email this to the board, but I did want to share a little bit feedback about policy 54 or 1540. I think I have shared with the board and what I sent today that I am a revision of this policy. To me, this proposed change, this is just me right now speaking. I'm not speaking on behalf of our whole admin team. I will in a second. But this proposed change undermines the role and responsibilities of the superintendent. In addition, I did discover today through conversations with BASA, which is the Superintendent State Support Group. Support group sounds wrong. Support organization. But their legal counsel did advise me that this policy is currently being litigated in the Ohio Supreme Court as for not being compliant with Ohio Revised Code. So I also wanted to bring that. Here are the reasons I don't agree with it. We, last year, had a new job description put together on the superintendent, and it clearly outlines that personnel is one of my primary functions. Two, I think there is oversight by the board still. As Seth pointed out at the meeting on Thursday, the board is directly responsible for Dave and I, treasurer superintendent. The board's and that's their primary function. I bring the contracts for everyone else, and then the board has the option to approve or not approve. And so there's not unilateral decisions, because I still need the board to work with me on what that looks like for our district. But it's my discretion to bring who we feel is appropriate for today to the board for consideration. It was brought up about Hamilton County districts. There's 22 districts in Hamilton County. 15 of them have the provision at the recommendation of the superintendent. 5 of them have it. One of them just have it listed as Ohio Revised Code, and then the other 6 do not have at the recommendation. So I just wanted to share that. The timing, I'm not really sure and don't understand the timing. I'll go over a couple things with that in a minute, but checks and balances already exist, and I just have concerns about the process and transparency around it. I think in terms of the timing, this has really kind of blindsided me, and it does feel rushed. In December, on December 2nd, the Personnel Committee met, which included 2 board members. During that conversation, there was discussion about contracts, and that we did not want to repeat the events of February 2023. This policy change was not discussed during that time and contradicts that discussion and how we talked about moving forward. December 12th, the Finance Committee met. During that time, we talked about our 5-year. We talked about the need to be very thoughtful about our expenditures moving forward. At the end of that discussion, we talked about setting a target, and that target then being what Dave and I use to make decisions about how we run the district, how we employ people, those pieces. After that meeting, Dave and I had a conversation, because at that, the target was to be neutral in our spending. Dave and I, through a conversation, we recognized with the escalation of cost, staying neutral was not realistic. So at the December board meeting, and it's in our notes, it was talked about that we would reevaluate that as a finance committee after we were done with our teacher negotiations, had a better understanding what how that would impact our finances. Then January 27th, we had a regular board meeting. At that board meeting, there was an executive session held that I was not a part of. nor was Dave. That's fine, because there were conversations about employment. January 30th, I had a meeting, I have a weekly meeting with the president, and Jaleesa and I sat down, and at that time, it was shared that there might be this policy and that admin contracts, I should not bring them in February. So from that, Jaleesa and I talked, and we're like, okay, well, let's get an executive session so we can all come together and have a conversation. I can kind of understand where we're at. We were not able to schedule that because there's conflicts and people have things going on. Fast forward February 6th, Anita and I met with Jaleesa and Seth to go through some of the things that were shared, kind of walk through them. We left that meeting with the understanding of, okay, we are going to move forward, bring the admin contracts. I sent a board update. Very quickly, I was asked not to include the admin contracts at the today's meeting, which they are not on the agenda. This policy was still kind of nebulous at that time, and I didn't really understand the full scope of it. And then I received an email saying that there needed to be a special meeting for this policy, but it was added to the special meeting. I found out fully about this policy through our attorney. So, with that being said, I would like to now read our admin feedback on this. It was emailed to us on Friday after the special meeting. All the administrators were emailed to ask to provide their input on this policy as required by Ohio Revised Code. Our administrators, because they are made yesterday virtually, and together we drafted what I will read to the board and the community now. We are deeply disappointed by the lack of meaningful dialogue regarding We are deeply disappointed. Thanks, Dave. We are deeply disappointed by the lack of meaningful dialogue regarding the proposed revision of policy 40. Instead of an open conversation with administrators, we were only given the opportunity to provide feedback via email. A face-to-face discussion would have affirmed the Board of Education support and value for its administrative team, while also ensuring that the many nuances of this decision were properly considered. We are feeling unsettled and disrespected. The removal of the superintendent's recommendation from this policy creates uncertainty and raises concerns about fairness, transparency, and due process. This change could foster a culture of fear, where administrators hesitate to make difficult but necessary decisions due to the possibility of retaliation or abrupt contract suspensions. Moreover, this decision, along with the communication policy change in the fall, is actively undermining our ability to lead. These actions send a troubling message about the lack of trust in our leadership team and negatively impact overall staff morale. When administrators feel unsupported and undervalued, it not only affects their ability to lead, but also disrupts the stability of the entire district. If this revision moves forward, it will set a dangerous precedent, one that erodes trust, discourages strong leadership, and ultimately weakens our district's ability to attract and retain high-quality administrators. We are left wondering what's next. If a policy change of this magnitude can happen without meaningful discussion, it sets a concerning precedent for future decisions. We urge the board to reconsider this revision and engage in a more thoughtful, inclusive process that respects and values the voices of our administrators and staff. And the administrators who were a part of that conversation were myself, Jen Dinan, Carol Miller, Eric Muchmore, Tom Snyder, Jesse Martin, Lisa Samuel, Anton Walker, Meredith Baker, and Grant Anderson.
Thank you, Laurie. I appreciate everything you contribute, Laurie. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, public address. All right. The board believes it is in the best interest of the students of the district to hear comments from members of the public. It has been therefore a long-standing practice of the board to encourage and allow residents to speak at a public meeting. This may be done by completing the bottom portion of this form and giving it to the board president prior to the board meeting. The following guidelines ensure that everyone interested in addressing the board may do so and that the board conducts the business of the school district in an effective and efficient manner. Number one, attendees must register their input to participate in the public participation portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting by completing this form and returning it to the board president or presiding officer. 2, each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. 3, for the public record, each speaker addressing the board must state their name, address, and group affiliation if and when appropriate. Any material or handouts must be presented to the treasurer for record. Number 4, the naming of individuals, profanity, abusive language, and speeches that invade individual privacies will not be tolerated or permitted. Number 5, the board will take no action regarding matters or issues presented through public address in the meeting in which the public address was made. All necessary follow-ups will be made verbally or in writing at a later date. So I think the first person we had up was Scott Harlemer. If you'd like to come on up. Thanks for being here, Scott. You can stand anywhere you feel comfortable. Yeah.
Project load, you can stand in
Yeah, you got a good voice.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Harlemer. I live at 790 Cloverview Avenue. I have 2 graduates in town, and I have 2 kids still at the secondary campus. I'm here in my capacity as a community member and a parent, but also as a former board member. I'd like to provide my thoughts about agenda item 10F, which is part of the superintendent's consent calendar, as well as agenda items 11, 12, and 13. First off, I'd like to present what I believe are some optics around these changes. The first optic that I'd like to present is that agenda item 10F introduces 27 new or revised policies which will be voted on at the next regular board meeting. The 3 policies presented in agenda items 11, 12, and 13 were introduced 5 days ago and are being voted on tonight. And I should say that this past weekend there was no school for 4 days. So it appears, the optics of this is that it's being done very, very, very swiftly. Secondly, specific to policy 1540, the suspension of administrative contracts, which enables the board to suspend administrative contracts without the superintendent's recommendation. If the board wants to suspend administrative contracts without that recommendation, it highlights the fact that the board and the superintendent have differing visions for the framework with which the district is implemented. And so, yeah, just different visions, okay? The third thing I'd like to highlight is that it's the superintendent's job to hire administrators, but if it becomes the board's job to suspend administrators, who really owns the administrative job performance and district outcomes here? So those are the optics. These are my thoughts personally. As a previous board member, I'd like to publicly state that previous versions of this board did not abdicate any of our duties. Rather, we took our duties very seriously and we hired a chief executive that we could work closely with to carry out the vision of the district. Secondly, I'm curious why the key HR processes of hiring administrators and suspending administrators is being separated into 2 separate bodies. And what about performance feedback for those administrators? Are there opportunities for course correction of those administrators before suspending a contract? Third, if the chief executive of the district and the board do disagree on directions, or do disagree on a direction, I believe it's the board's responsibility to work closely with the chief executive and hire a chief executive that you can meet in the middle, figure out some shared vision for the district, and then trust that chief executive to go forth and implement that vision. Finally, I'm concerned that even if the current board exercises prudence with regard to administrative contract decisions, that there's no guarantee that future boards will be as prudent. And so I hope that this board acts with prudence and not with prejudice or personal agenda in the decisions that you make this evening and going forward. And last but not least, I will speak about the other couple that are being implemented presented tonight with 5 days of lead time. I would simply urge this board to act with compassion for all students of this district, no matter what. Thank you.
Scott. Next, we have Laura Walker. You can stand wherever you like, Laura.
So, sorry, I'm recovering from the flu. I can't really hear, and my voice is a little crackly, so bear with me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, sure. My name is Laura Walker. I live in Mason, but I've been the district media specialist for 18 years at Finneytown local schools, and I've never actually spoken at one of these board meetings before. This is a first for me, and I've only ever written to the board once before, but I did send them this letter yesterday because I feel very strongly about this. It is in regard to policy 1540, the suspension of administrative contracts. I couldn't find the revised policy anywhere on the website, and it wasn't actually read last Thursday, so forgive my assumptions or errors that I might have made simply by watching the live stream of the special board meeting. The biggest change, if I'm correct, is that the board wants to eliminate the wording of "with the recommendation of the superintendent" from the policy, allowing the board full control over the decision to suspend the contracts of any administrator. I have grave concerns about such a revision. My first concern is that, contrary to Ms. Lee's assertion at the special meeting, taking away the superintendent's recommendation reduces the checks and balances that have been put into place regarding administrative contracts. As the policy currently stands, the superintendent makes a recommendation and the board votes on all of her recommendations. The superintendent does not have all the power, but merely the power to recommend. The board has the power to decline some or all of the contracts that have been recommended by the superintendent. This is how checks and balances are supposed to work. By taking away the superintendent's right to make a recommendation, however, the board is asserting complete and total control power, effectively eliminating all checks and balances. We're currently seeing this elimination of checks and balances at the federal level, and it concerns me greatly that our board wants to wrest what little power our superintendent has away from her. My second concern is that this policy change leads to a very slippery slope. School boards that have the power to suspend administrative contracts without the recommendation of the superintendent may decide to extend their power to suspend teacher contracts as well. Positions at any level may be cut without going through proper channels. One only has to look at the cuts happening in our federal government right now to know that slippery slopes are not only possible, but likely. My third concern is that we as a district are currently in the middle of a number of very large projects, and while I do not know what will happen as a result of this policy change, I do tend to think in terms of worst case scenarios. So the worst that could happen as a result of this policy change, in my opinion, is that our superintendent could resign and all of or most of her team would soon follow suit. I don't need to remind you that a superintendent search takes months and costs a lot of money, and bringing someone new up to speed on the FSC building project at this point would take time and money that we don't have. Similarly, if we were to lose our FSC principal, we would lose all the stability and staff morale that Ms. Miller has worked so hard to cultivate on our campus. Bringing a new principal on board while construction is actively underway on the FSC campus would be the opposite of ideal. Who knows what changes to existing plans a new superintendent or a new FSC principal would want to make. I can't even imagine the construction delays that would occur as a result of such a turmoil in our administrative team. None of us knows what surprises are in store for us over the next 4 years, with the new president threatening to eliminate the Department of Education, among other things. I'm asking you to please reconsider this policy change, as I believe it will result in surprises that could absolutely be avoided if we were to leave policy 1540 as it reads now. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for being here, Laura. Michael?
Hi, Michael Hamel. I live at 8532 North Drive. I would just like to applaud the board for the decision that you have made. I stand with the three of you. It's a tough decision. It was an argument. I don't think that we need to have hysteria or sentiment or emotion get wrapped up in this, because what I believe is going to happen is it's going to strengthen the ability for everybody to work together. It's going to be a new understanding of how things should work, how they can work, and I think if anything else, I think we will create a better product for the school, for the community, and for us we the taxpayers. So I do applaud you. It was a tough choice, but I do think that with all of you working together, I think the decisions will go forward in the right directions.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And lastly, we have Cindy Redmond.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, Cindy Redmond, 38-year resident of Finneytown, 2 sons graduated in 7 and 9, had a grandson in first grade and a almost 3-year-old granddaughter who will be attending Finneytown. Also 12-year board member over the course of 16 years. Thursday's meeting led me to believe that this second reading was not going to occur until after the executive session. It was discussed that the first reading was going to force the executive discussions to happen, and therefore the policy might not be necessary. But here on the agenda tonight, it's before the executive session. So either I fully misunderstood, or this is being slid in under the radar. So you signed a contract with the superintendent. You knew where she stood, and yet you renewed it. You've expressed concerns about disagreements over contracts, and yet in all the time that's passed, those things haven't been addressed, decided, discussed, compromised, figured out. We're all adults here. Figure this out. I, for those who don't know, work at another high school because you can't be on board and work in the same district, so I took a jump across. And in my 13 years there, we are on our 6th principal. This is not a high school that you're thinking, oh, I want to go there. It's a high school you would like to go to or send your kids to. Over those years of 6 principals, every time the principal changes, everything we do changes. We don't know what they like, what they don't like, how they want to run the building. It's a mess. We do not need to get back to the revolving door we used to have here, where administrators changed constantly, and staff was always wondering which end is up. I know that there are postings already, 2 of them at my school district. If you make administrators and superintendents feel not secure in their job, you will lose people. And it may not be the ones you're trying to get rid of. Keep that in mind. Scott spoke very well about optics. I'll say it like I see it. It looks underhanded, looks like a power grab, and it's not what any board member is elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here and voicing your opinions. We will get back with you as soon as we can. Thank you so much. Item number 7, review of action steps from last month. Number 1, find a calendar date for the board self-assessment. I have not began to get to that because things have been a little crazy, so we will table that for a little bit. Item number 2, prepare and post the February 13, 2025 special meeting agenda. Yep, and we got all that done. So we go to item number 8, board coordination matters. Who would like to go first?
I don't have any updates.
No updates? Would you like to go?
I can go first.
Okay.
I also added the discussion of live streaming on special meetings. Is it okay if we discuss that first before I go into my little update?
Does it matter which order? Yeah.
So one issue that I wanted to bring up, the reason why I have this added to the agenda, is that last Thursday's special board meeting was live streamed, which I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with, except that the board previously voted, and I was one of those who voted not to record special meetings. So a majority of the board, 3 members out of 5, including myself, and you, Delicia, and then also a former board member who's no longer on the board, voted that we would not record special meetings. I got an email saying that Thursday's meeting was going to be recorded. Fine, I guess. I just want to be consistent. So I was disappointed that Thursday's meeting was recorded without the board weighing in on that again. I felt that there should have been some sort of vote or discussion in a board meeting before we start recording meetings, just because someone requested it. If we were going to record meetings just because someone requested it, I would have requested for all of the Whitaker board special board meetings to be recorded.
Did you request it?
I would have, but the board had already voted that we would not record special meetings. So if we're gonna record just because one person requests it, then we either need to record all meetings, or we need to not record any meetings. So that was something I wanted to open up for possible discussion. Do we want to record all future special board meetings, or do we want to not record any, or set up some sort of procedure for that? Of course, the recording would not need to include special meetings which only have an executive session, because there's nothing for anyone to see. So that was something I wanted to open up the floor for discussion.
I want to say I'm sorry that you felt that way, that you felt like it wasn't enough communication. We had actually received the email maybe a day prior, so it was just the timing. It wasn't to sneak anything in. And if anything, I felt like it was for transparency purposes. I mean, we claim we're a transparent board. There shouldn't really be an issue with us showcasing what we were discussing. It was a little bit of a different topic than we typically touch on. So I apologize that you felt that you weren't included, but if a community member reaches out and they want to record it, I thought it would be a great idea, considering all of the sicknesses going around and people who couldn't be in attendance, and that way we could go back to refer to it, because here, Dave wasn't here, and I think it became like a great resource from. I do apologize that you felt that way.
I understand. It's just inconsistent with what the board previously voted, regardless of the fact that it makes sense.
Okay.
So I just wanted to see going forward, then make sure that we're all on the same page. Are we recording special meetings, or are we not?
I appreciate that this conversation is happening, because I felt the same way, and I actually voted opposite. I did want all the meetings recorded, and I'm glad that it was recorded for Thursday, but there was a lot of effort put into trying to get that decision made earlier, for it to not happen at that time, and then to happen for one person requesting it when we had at least 2 members of the board requesting it previously. It just seemed very inconsistent.
Inconsistent?
Yes, because the board, I was one of them, had wanted all of the special meetings where we had public
So actually, I reached out to legal counsel, and I reached out to him, and he said I didn't even have to share it with you guys at all as the president. So that was-
Understood.
Did you tell
Yeah.
legal
Did he
counsel
know
that
that we
we
voted?
voted against it? Or like the board voted it?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, the
That makes a
board,
big
It
difference.
would definitely make.
I thought that all of you guys originally wanted it recorded at one point. I feel like I was the least, I was
I mean, the
the,
last vote was no, with me on the side of the no's.
You, Eddie, and Tony voted no.
Yeah.
So
Which,
Okay.
it's fine, but if that's the case, I would like to look into doing all of the special meetings via live stream.
I think the reason why we didn't do that is it was more work for Grant.
Well,
That was
I
the
think-
reason why we turned
I
it
think-
down,
So-
because we create a lot of extra work.
So then how do we get that to be consistent to where we decide on a standard process of what gets recorded and what doesn't?
We'll have to figure that out.
I motion that, because by you saying, one of you said something that reminded me, I was as and listener, I do remember that conversation. I was not on, I wasn't even voted in yet. I was a candidate at that point. I motion, if possible, to put that in the organization agenda every January, so that way every board knows if we're going to televise special meetings or not. So that way each board, no matter who's here, they know, or they know they're not going to. So that way I totally forgot that was the discussion, especially since I was not part of the vote. But that's why I motion. I motion to have that discussion every January at the organizational meeting.
I think that's very fair.
I mean, I'm not sure we need a motion for it, but I do think that that's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
And then in the
You just
meantime,
have to remember
until,
it going forward.
Yeah, you'll still be on the board, so you
Yeah,
can.
Well,
so you
yeah.
can make that happen.
So,
then what is the decision, make that decision from now until January?
I mean, we could just do a vote now, but we'd have to decide, are we gonna report or not?
I think we'd have to have further discussion with Laurie and Grant to see if Grant is available to do that, considering our board meets a lot more than some boards do. So I would hate
Wouldn't
to add more
necessarily have to
work.
be Grant, it could be
Actually haven't
whoever
lately.
Laurie would like to have.
well, at the same time, we like to do the research. So how about this, since I'm motion friendly today? I motion that we table this discussion until next regular board meeting. That way
Let's
we
do
can
that.
do our research, we can find out what's needed, so we can do that.
Agreed.
That's fine with me.
Okay, are you second?
I don't think we need a motion necessarily.
We don't,
but-
do we need a motion then? Oh, I'm just being, I'm
We
having
didn't
fun.
make a motion to vote on
No.
it, so we don't need a motion to second.
But I think there would need to be an action item to follow up and make sure that we do the research.
If you could bring us some recommendation conversation or what that would look like to record all meetings versus not. And then we'd have to decide if that would just be a board motion to adopt some sort of course
Or
of
if it
action,
should
or
be
if
a
it was a
policy.
policy. That's
It
what
has
we'd
to
have
be
to
policy.
And
decide.
sometimes we don't have to be so technical about everything. Like, this was a different occasion. I mean, this is a lot. Look at our community. Look who's
Right,
here.
but that's-
But you
I mean,
do.
that was-
But
that was
you
a
do
decision
have
that
to.
you made.
The Whitaker meeting
Yeah.
was a special occasion. There were hundreds of people here.
But
There's
no one
others that
requested it.
are
Had
also
you
special
requested it,
occasions.
maybe it would have
I didn't request it
happened.
because the board's supporting me.
I want them all recorded, but that was a decision that
All
you
right,
made
we're
on
gonna
your
table
own.
this and we're going to move on. Don't.
So moving on
Okay,
to other
it's not a
things.
good idea to talk about previous decisions. Once I make a decision, that needs to be the end of it. You don't need to go back and tell me what decision I made. That's not your choice.
Okay, I'm gonna share my
right, you
board
can go
update
ahead.
from the township, the last township meeting. Also just other things related to the township. Everyone has seen, there's been news reports, there was a news report from WCPO about a development that the township is working on. Just wanted to make sure that the rest of the board was aware of this. It's interesting to me. It was about a property that I didn't even know existed. So there was a public hearing at the Springfield Township Zoning Commission last night regarding a development plan for the property off Lee Crest Road, which is near Winton Woods. It's not the property that's directly off McKelvey on the way to the Frisbee Golf Course. It's further down the road, a little bit further south. So there's a 80 acre plus area of horse fences and a barn. But the property was recently sold. There was a previous developer agreement, and I guess a third of the property was developed. The plan is to develop the property into 120 single-family homes and 61 story townhomes, according to Chris Gilbert, the township administrator, and the developer is Rick Seitz, who you may recognize from previous conversations about the Whitaker property. And as I said, there was a news story about that on WCPO. I'd like to look at that, but that's a pretty large development that's probably going to come to fruition. Also, there is a street repaving project that's going to be going on at Pleasant Run Farms. They're voting on that in March. There is a dinner theater event on March 27th at the Grove. It is catered by Tila. It's David Anthony's Night of Magic and Hypnosis. On April 11th and 12th, there are 60 kids that are registered for the Children's Theater Program through the township. They have 2 shows each day with 2 different casts. So that is April 11th and 12th. Also, Chief of Police Niehaus shared that they're seeing a lot of instances of individuals checking for unlocked car doors in the township. So the police department said that any doorbell camera video footage of people checking doors, they ask that you share that with them. And if you have a Ring camera, that you share it to your to the Neighbors tab in the Ring app, or you share it directly with them. That information is useful even if they do not steal anything from your car. That's what the police chief shared. Also, the gas aggregation that the township entered into is still beating Duke's rate. There was a news story that I read also that some municipalities are having issues that their gas aggregation is not beating Duke's rate and that maybe you should look at a different gas provider, but apparently our rate is still lower than Duke's, so the township did a pretty good job with that as well. And that is all that I have.
Did you have a report, Seth?
Yeah, I have. The FMPA met on March 6th. Please put your calendars down to go to Skyline. It is, they're dying to donate. A lot of expenses are going, as we know, with eggs and everything else, but also with the music department. For example, just the copyright permits for us our band and orchestra to use some of their pieces. Most of the copyright cost now 3 times as much as they used to be. So more fundraisers to come. They're still going to do the mattress sale. That's coming up. But at this moment in time, the closest one coming is March 6th at Skyline. So I hope to see everyone enjoying a 3-way or more over there. The Finneytown Alumni Network. You do not have to be an alumni to be involved with a fan. If you're a fan of Finneytown, to be a fan. Go to finneytownalumni.org or to be a member. And on March 20th at 5 p.m., meet us at Madry. Some old alumni and some new alumni, so we can have some socials So they are working their butt off to have more events and everything else so people can reconnect to I am not part of the boosters, but I did hear something very nice about a wrestling program. First off, we have two CHL league winners within our wrestling program. One of them is Brady Voles. I'm terrible with names, so I apologize for the other one who won. Hopefully you might know. But Brady Voles, not only did he win his league, but he also won his 100th match. And that gave the Cincinnati Choir that he's in the nomination for Athlete of the Week. So jump on the Cincinnati Enquirer website. Let's nominate Finneytown Brady Voles for Athlete of the Week. Exciting news. FAA, if I understand correctly, baseball, volleyball, and spring wrestling is looking for kids if you're looking for sports. The elementary school PTA, Black History Night will be February 28th. I forgot to write down the times. 5:30? 6:30. 6:30. So apologize on not writing down times. But either way, show up at 3 o'clock. No, just kidding. Black History Night will be at February 28th. If you want to volunteer or anything else, get a hold of the PTA. And the carnival, just to mark your calendars too, because they'll need volunteers, will be April 12th. And that is what I have.
All right, thank you, Seth. All right, I didn't have very much. I just wanted to highlight 11th graders will be taking the ACTs on Wednesday, February 20th. So only juniors will report to school that day for the secondary. The practice ACT is on Wednesday, February 26th after school at 3 p.m. Conferences are still going on this week from 4 to 7 on Thursday. There's a staffing service on March 21st. Spring break, March 24th through the 28th. Yeah, that's what I had.
Seth's covered sports, so we are pretty covered there. The only other thing is our board calendar. We have a few dates coming up that I did want to highlight if anyone wants to volunteer. March 7th is the social for 4th through 6th grade. And then March 14th through the 16th, we have Rogers and Hamilton and Cinderella at the PAC. And then April 3rd will be the next Pro Action Cafe at 5 p.m. I noticed it seems to be getting really thin on the events. I think it just needs updated with things like spring kickoff for sports.
That's March 4th.
Okay.
I'll add that.
Thank you. And then I missed some senior nights for winter sports, so if there's any senior nights coming up for spring sports, I would really like to know when they are.
March 4th, you said?
Yeah, it's the spring sports kickoff.
And that's all I have.
All right. Item number 9, financial matters. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. And I'll second.
All right, could you walk us through this, Dave?
Okay, first item, number 1, monthly financial report. Total revenues in January, the general fund were $1,531,466. Fiscal year to date, $12,564,653. Expenditures in January, $1,791,218. Fiscal year to date expenditures, $12,918,872. The ending cash balance in the general fund at the end of January was $13,639,044. Item B, depository investment balances. U.S. Bank, $549,233. U.S. Bank Construction Fund, $1,859,537. Star Ohio Construction Number 1, $3,070,193. Star Ohio main account, $23,893,419. Star Ohio Construction Number 2, $3,234,667. Star Ohio local share, $148,456, and the Star Ohio state share, $4,050,989. Item C, interest on depository investment accounts for January. General fund interest income was $92,700. $72. Construction fund earnings, $24,340. And the classroom facilities fund, $15,696. Item D is the monthly bond project spending commitment report. I'll just mention that total expense on the project, and this takes into account both the elementary and what we've begun to do on the secondary campus, is $25,364,049. And we currently have open purchase orders for about $4.4 million, and the secondary campus project is going out to bid. And so once we get that information, the rest of the project will come under contract.
Any questions or anything? I think there's one more piece. You have
No,
H? Oh, they're under Lori?
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Plow?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
All right, item passes. Moving on to item number 10, superintendent's recommendations. Do I have a motion?
No motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Laurie, if you could walk us through it.
Yep, I'll go over the highlights. Item A, we have hired a payroll specialist, Crystal, and she is by Crystal, will be starting with us tomorrow, and we're excited to have her join our treasurer's department.
Did that price change? I mean, her salary, I think, originally it was like 55,000, I thought. Did it change or?
That's prorated for the rest of
This year, okay, so
Yeah.
going forward, she'll be the 50, okay.
Item B, C, our supplemental contract. Item D is approval for home instruction. Item E is the actual adoption of the second read of our school calendar proposed for 25-26. Item F is the consideration of policies listed. Oh, I take that back, the third school thing is done.
I didn't think.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
sorry.
right. G is actually we can do that, at a different time. The G is the resolution, for the board to adopt the new model policies that are set out by the Department of Education regarding special education. And that needs to be done by, date in March, and we put it on here. All of our policies have been updated to align with that. They just updated language, and really none of the primary function of special education has shifted, just more of the language. So, I mean, the policies that have been impacted by that are part of the first reading tonight, a group of those, so. But in terms of what we do day in and day out, in terms of evaluating and planning and serving students, that has not shifted. Item 11, adoption of.
I think
Oh,
we'll do
that's
that
separate.
separate.
Okay.
Yep.
Item H,
Was that?
the amended, the add-on.
Yeah.
Oh, the change order. Those are change orders actually related to Finneytown Elementary based on work that continues because building projects don't start once the building's open. And so those are things that we're still trying to work through and finalize, so.
Questions? All right, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Plow?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Moving on to item number 11, adoption of new revised policies. It is requested that the board adopt the following new revised policies, which is presented for consideration at the special meeting of the board on February 13, 2024. So we are now voting on 1540. And I want to actively say I am saying no to this policy. This policy violates everything that Finneytown is and who we are. I think it divides us and it doesn't bring us together.
We need a motion and a second before any discussion.
I
May I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, who's gonna second?
I'll second.
I
Thanks.
motion to pause this conversation again because I have enough time to do my research on this one to try to find pros or cons for this. And right now, with the fact that we have so much community members coming for this, with talking to it, wanting to talk to us about this, gives us more pause to slow down this policy, which we are going fast on, and bring it back to the full policy committee. Since I wasn't there, I'm motioning to bring it back to the policy committee so we can actually have communication with the 10 admin that we have, so we can talk to committee members of that if need be. I motion that we slow this down so we can have full, open conversation so we can understand what's going on, because as we go through this, as we heard and as we know, by opening this up, we put positions that don't need to be political, but it politicizes things at lower levels that doesn't need to be. I motion for a pause on this to the committee, back to the policy committee, to make sure that we keep whatever movement we do, we keep the trust, and that's why the people that talked to me before I ran suggested for to do this, be on this panel, so we can make sure we gain trust with not only our community, but we gain trust with admin, teachers, staff alike. So I motion to put pause on this, to bring back to the policy committee. Is there a second?
I'll second. I think we did that last.
I know. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop crying.
All right, I don't know how much more I can say.
If there's a motion and a second, do we need to vote?
Well,
We can
there's still
discuss it.
discussion. We've opened it to discussion.
Okay.
Like
I mean, are we voting on the motion and second, because that's a separate
Because,
motion?
yes.
We would
we're
be voting on
First.
pausing.
on pausing it, so we can go slowly and correctly, because if we go fast, we're going to blow up something. The
Sorry.
analogy I used last time is our predecessors, some people in this audience have built the dam the way. Now, if we start taking bricks out one at a time, that brick is important. That brick might be important, and it will make a flood that Finneytown can't handle. And I honestly, I'm trying to find time to research this, and at the same time, last time, we are, as a board, we are supposed to be in charge of superintendent and treasurer. If we have questions with the superintendent's team or the treasurer's team, or for fiduciary duty, we hire them. We do time, do our day-to-day life, and also spend money for superintendent and treasurer if we're trying to do their duties as well. So we have to trust that what they tell us is true. If we question them, then we don't renew their contract.
And to me, this feels like a dictatorship, and this is not what I feel like we strive to be, in my opinion. It just feels like a dictatorship. There was no merit, no conversation, nothing. There was just, I don't even have words. I'm just disappointed. I'm very disappointed. I am. Okay.
Eddie, did you have something to say, or did I interrupt?
I just didn't know if we needed to vote on there's two motions, so.
First,
Well, now
yeah,
we're
first is the
voting on the
pause.
pause.
The vote is on whether or not we
We're
pause.
discussing
And if that
policy.
passes, we pause. If it doesn't, we vote on the pause.
I mean,
Policy.
Or we go
I
to
mean,
discussion on the pause.
I don't think that that's necessary, because either the policy passes or it doesn't. So,
I think we've said quite a lot on this at this point.
Yeah, I think it's time to vote on it, but.
I think we have to do two votes.
So first
We
we
have
have
to
to
vote on
vote.
the
vote.
pause.
We'll vote on the pause. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
So yes is to pause, no is not to pause. Correct?
Yes, it's to pause. Mhm.
Pause.
Ms. McMullen,
Yes, to pause.
Ms. Lee,
No.
Mr. Plow,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
No.
Mr. Reed.
No.
All right, motion passes. So now we're
What
going,
does it?
I'm sorry, motion fails. So now we're going to move on to vote on the policy as it reads.
Unless there's further discussion.
Yes. We already had
And I have discussion. Just so everybody knows, we're not allowed to comment on what was said. We can't respond to it. So I have everything written that I was going to say, and some of the points are covered. So what I'm saying is not in response to what people said. My last comment that I wrote was the policy was being litigated in the Supreme Court, which was said by Lori prior to public discussion. So nothing I'm saying here is in response. It is to statements that I have prepared. I believe that policy 1540 as it currently stands is an abdication of the fiduciary responsibility bestowed upon the elected members of this school board. Moreover, I believe that the previous board members who knew of its existence but didn't change it failed to fulfill the expectations of responsible board members. I've prepared a statement that covers a number of subjects: legal duties, current circumstances, the current policy, state law, and teachers' contracts. So I'd like to read some points on that. Changing the policy ensures the board fulfills its legal duties to the district. Policy 1540 in its current state permits changes to the administrative staff only if the superintendent approves the changes. This is true even if the district is in financial ruin and must cut staff to survive as a district. Accordingly, if the board wants to cut non-essential positions to ensure the district's financial stability, the superintendent could simply say no and keep the staff in place, even if the status quo means destroying the financial health of the district. I want to be very clear about my motivation for changing the policy. This policy must be changed to permit the board to ensure the long-term financial health of our district. The board is legally responsible for ensuring the district's well-being. Therefore, I believe I have a legal obligation to move the final decision-making power to eliminate unnecessary positions back to the board. Current circumstances demonstrate need for the change. As stated, my motivation for changing the policy is permitting the board to fulfill its duty to look out for the district's best interest. But often the desire for change arises out of unsatisfactory current circumstances. This is no exception. Finneytown, from an educational performance perspective, is not nearly as strong as it was in the past. Current data suggests we have stopped the decline. However, the district has not succeeded in moving toward where the district used to be. While our financial health has been strong, the forecasted financial picture is quite frankly alarming. The 5-year forecast shows that our expenses are exceeding our income. This means we either need to consider making cuts to our budget and/or asking voters to pass a levy. We have a district structure. Administration roles overlap such that the same 2 or 3 people frequently attend the same meetings together. State law prohibits school districts from operating with negative cash balance. If Finneytown Local School District continues spending money like it currently does, eventually we will have to operate with a negative cash balance. The consequences for having a negative cash balance would be devastating. The state can take over the district, thus making all decisions. All salaries could be frozen. The state can fire all administrators. The teacher contracts would have to be renegotiated. The state could order a charter school to take over the district. Making changes now to stop the financial decline would have a multiplying effect down the road. For example, cutting a position costing the district $100,000 now means that in 5 years we'll have at least $500,000 we wouldn't have if we kept the status quo. Number 3, policy 1540 is bad government. The voters elect the board to look out for the district's best interest. Indeed, the board has a fiduciary duty to do just that, act in the best interest of the district. This sometimes means making decisions that are not popular. But to save the district from financial ruin, the board must be willing to do what is necessary to protect the district. Under current policy 1540, the board lacks the authority to make the changes that will ensure the district's financial health. Instead, the board must have the superintendent's permission to cut administrative permits. The board-superintendent relationship should be one of collaboration and compromise. But if that relationship is lacking, for example, if, as here, the board and the superintendent cannot agree whether to cut unnecessary positions to keep the district from spending more money than it takes in, the board must have the authority to make hard decisions. Since I joined the board, almost every conversation I've had with residents about the district's financial health has included lamenting the top-heavy nature of the district because we have too many administrators. I agree, there is significant administrative bloat, but under the current policy, the board's hands are tied. Unless the superintendent agrees to cut the fat, Finneytown must live with the status quo, losing money each year, eating up our cash reserves, having too many administrators, and eventually risking the state taking over the district. Indeed, under the current policy, the superintendent has the right to ignore the board's directive involving the size of the administration. Some in the community have suggested that changing the policy is nothing more than board members' power grab. The community members are missing the mark. The board has a legal responsibility to act in the best interest of the district. The policy means placing the final decision-making responsibility related to overstaffing where it belongs, with the 5 members of the board. Keeping the policy the same means that a single person ultimately makes these decisions. Unlike the 5 board members who are elected by and answer to the voters, the superintendent is a sole, unelected person who doesn't answer to the residents. I believe that changing the policy will enhance our collaboration and compromise between the board and superintendent, an enhancement that is desperately needed. Good will discuss changes with the superintendent and ultimately make the final decision. And if the voters are displeased with those decisions, the answer is simple. In the next election, change the board. Leaving the decision to keep or eliminate an administrative position also leaves the reasoning for doing so to a single person. And the board may not know for what reasons he or she is making that decision. Is it to benefit the best interest of the district? Is it to protect friends or supporters? Is it to avoid making hard decisions? Under the current policy, if the board and superintendent disagreed about cutting position, the only change a board could make would be to terminate the superintendent's contract. Changing the policy instead of finding a new superintendent leaves the board with more flexibility to act in the district's best interest. Number 4, state law requirements. State law dictates that rules for eliminating administrative contracts. For example, policy 1540 goes beyond that state law. The policy language is consistent with the statute, except that it adds the limitation on the board disallowing eliminating an administrative contract without the superintendent's blessing. The current superintendent often implores the board to look at what other districts are doing when it is in her best interest. For example, she asked the board to survey other district superintendent salaries and benefits, like the pickup on pickup. Come and talk to me if you want an explanation of that one. I did my research on this policy and found that many districts in Hamilton County do not have this limiting clause. If it's good government to have it, wouldn't all districts have it? The state of Ohio does not require school boards to have a superintendent's permission to eliminate an administrative position, and the statute specifically allows a board to eliminate a position based on financial conditions. This makes sense because a school board has a duty to act in the district's best interest. Sometimes acting as such requires a board to make cuts to the administration that a superintendent would not otherwise make. Abdicating that responsibility is bad government. Number 5, teachers' contracts. I don't think a board member could be more supportive than me of teachers and their union, and I find the suggestion of placing the burden of helping the district's financial health on our teachers distasteful. Teachers negotiate a contract that addresses salaries, benefits, and the reduction in force process. In Finneytown, administrators have gotten every benefit offered to the teachers and then some. Ask me about the difference in severance packages if you want to. Teachers are the people who work directly with our children to provide them with the care and education Finneytown prides itself on providing. If we must make cuts to continue to operate, teacher cuts, even to just their salaries, should not be considered first. They should be a last resort. Conclusion. Considering our district's 5-year financial forecast, the board must have all available tools at our disposal to make the decisions in the best interest of the district. The change to policy 1540 is one tool to address the district's financial health. I understand that some residents will not like this change. Well, residents are welcome to express their opinions in person, via email, or any other method. And of course, residents may express feelings about board members at the ballot box or run for office. Finally, I want board members and residents to ask yourselves, if our district is ever in a financial position where we must ask for a levy, how can we ask the voters to trust the district with additional money when we're not currently managing the money well? How can we ask the voters to approve a levy when the board does not have the authority to fully manage the budget? Thank you.
I also wrote some things, not as long. But, one thing I noted, I did get a few emails from community members, and it was very clear that there's a misunderstanding of what this policy does. And so I'm going to read the words from the lawyer, which, just to kind of clarify, that's how most of us, I think, found out about this policy reading as it was.
That will pierce attorney-client privilege. Please don't do that.
I'm just specific words. It is required that we follow the recommendation. That is what the policy currently says. In order to do something, we have to have the recommendation. I have spent 3 years on this board trying to collaborate. I tried to Google on my email to see how many times I mentioned the word collaborate or talk. It was too many to even count. I've spent time listening. I thought we built a great relationship, but I don't feel that this topic specifically has had any collaboration. We've tried to talk through, someone mentioned, what has happened in the last 2 years since the last time. We've brought this up. We've discussed many different things. We've talked various different situations, what we're going to do with finances, where can we cut. Like they said, the finance committee had already had these conversations, but the collaboration just has not really happened. We brought 4 directions out of the last executive session, or maybe the last 2. Don't hold me to that. It may not have been just the last one. But of those, in the last year, none of them were done. None.
The admin contracts are not on the agenda today.
After a very, very hard fight. And I don't know how many others, but I had at least 2 very long emails between Jalecia and you. I don't think you had a response, but it seemed like that was just very hard fought, and it should not have been that way. We all have said we want to collaborate and we want to work through this. We do not want to have another situation like last time. And it seemed like the route we were going to go. So this is not because we don't want to collaborate. I honestly feel that changing this policy will force that collaboration because it's just not working.
I know that Laurie and I tried very, very hard to schedule a meeting with the board, and the board would not work with me.
It's not about
Yeah.
working with you in that case. We were asked within the weekend of the meeting.
I understand that it was last
days.
minute. You're right, it was
It
last
was.
minute.
We wanna
It was,
point
but I
out-
gave like a week time frame. I tried for weeks, and I know Jamie said he didn't have availability for a couple of weeks up until our February 13th board meeting. So it just didn't seem like anybody was really trying to work and get a meeting. Laurie and I worked really hard to try to get a meeting. We did, being totally
So a
transparent.
few things. The board, we have personnel committee, we have finance committee. Those are opportunities for collaboration. I left both of those spaces feeling good about the direction going forward, and at no point was, in fact, Seth and Jamie, correct me, but it was, we'll tell you the target, you and Dave figure out how to hit it. So like now, to get this policy and this idea that administration needs to be cut, I'm blindsided, to be quite honest. You want to talk about collaboration, all those came out of the executive session I was not a part of.
So Lori, you said that we came out of a personnel meeting and then you told us you can't target. So is this not us helping you?
No, I said the target, Dave and I had talked, I said in the December board meeting, that target is no longer, we don't feel it's realistic, and we have too many with the negotiated contract.
So when's the
Same
next
thing.
personnel committee meeting? Or when is the budget committee meeting?
We were waiting, and the directive said we were gonna schedule that upon the completion of negotiations.
Okay, but you also were told not to bring administrative contracts until negotiations were finished. We can't do a budget meeting until, we can't be setting administrative contracts until the budget meeting is held.
Well, I never even got to bring them conversation with the board about that, because we did take into consideration what I was going to bring in the board to the board was the consideration that negotiations were not finalized, but we also have administrators who are feeling unsettled, and opportunities for them to find different employment are now. And the fact that the board was putting this policy in front of us made me assume that there was an intent to use this policy. Therefore, everyone's feeling a little
So
unsettled, and
the problem that happened 2 years ago where we had a very poorly administered meeting where a bunch of our administrators didn't have their contract renewed, you knew what the issue was. Did you attempt to fix it? And is it still in all the contracts?
I'm sorry, you just approved Anita's contract, and you approved 2 contracts last year with the same thing in it with no conversation. So my assumption was 2 years ago, you did end up passing it with the super severance. You passed the 3 administrative contracts that have happened since then. So my assumption that it was okay to continue bringing that, and there is something comparable to that in our teacher contract.
It's
So
not
yes.
comparable. It is absolutely not comparable.
I'm not sure if this is
All right,
on
we're
the
gonna-
topic
But
of the
you
policy.
didn't want to collaborate. That's your MO. Wait until it's too late to change it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we're gonna get back on the agenda here.
So,
Any other
discussion.
Again, our responsibility as the superintendent and treasurer, if we have problems, if we have trust issues with the superintendent, we don't renew the contract.
Our responsibility is also the financial health of the district.
Right, and then our previous board got rid of previous boards, but our recent board got rid of a superintendent. His vision was nice, but he couldn't financially handle it. So they didn't renew the contract, and they got Terry Nolan. And she was the one that got us back to financially good. So our responsibility is the superintendent and treasurer.
And I appreciate you wanting to be fiscally responsible. I really, really appreciate that. But us telling her exactly where to cut it, that's just not our lane. It's just not. That is not our lane.
But
To
her
tell
telling
her-
us where
so-
we can't cut it is not her lane.
Keeping this on,
Why is
we're
it our
not
lane?
currently telling them that. This is a policy
Right,
change.
this is to change policy, so we have all of the tools.
To give the
This will
tool
make
if needed.
conversation happen.
Through the finance committee or personnel committee, but through the issue that we have right now through the finance committee is where we put our directives to, if I understand it correctly. If we're not hitting the marks, we turn to the finance committee and say, where do we go? Where's the fat? We want trim here and here and here. Without getting too much in the weeds, to my understanding, that's what we do. Where we show our financial fiduciary duty is through the finance committee.
Yeah, and I feel like as a board, we could have done a better job giving her that guidance and having the discussion at having all of our administrators at the table. And we didn't do that. We didn't. We didn't have a proper conversation with them. How would you feel going into your workplace and someone telling you that they're just gonna go cutting and telling you how to
It
do your job?
happens all the
Do you know?
time. It happens all the time in workplaces around the country.
Well, this is a little bit different.
But then don't use it as an
You're
example.
in a corporate world. I'm just
But-
saying.
I'm in the
hypothetically.
local government world. It happens all the time.
Okay, let's get back on track.
So
Any other topics?
the student council.
Have anything to
The
say?
city council does not go to the directors of public services or DOTE or even parks and say, you're fired. They do not do that. They leave it to the city manager to figure out where the fat gets trimmed. Alicia Reese doesn't come to your supervisors and say, hey, you guys are gone. It is through the county administrators that is done, not the trustees. I just got,
That's where I was going with that.
yeah.
It's not comparable, but, okay.
Okay.
For my job, it's not comparable. I know what happens, so.
Would you like to say anything? No? Okay. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
So yes is to amend the policy.
Yes is to amend the policy.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Ms. McMullen,
No.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Plow,
No.
Mr. Ray.
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to item number 12. Policy 5540, and community agencies. May I have a roll, any discussion? May I have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Is this before the 28th or was that the other one?
No, this is the one that provides some more guidance and help administration should ICE or another government agency in buildings looking to either question or take a child.
And this is the policy that aligns with Neola, correct, Laurie?
No. Well, no, this is not the Neola one. This was, I think, written Jason.
Jason helped write this one based on a new attorney they had at their firm who worked on this exact policy in other cities around the country. And this one, it's not a timely, it could happen tomorrow. Like, there's no law change.
But are we represented fairly, I guess, is my question?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure before we,
It's not a bad policy, it just makes it clear.
I know.
It helps our principals, mostly.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. McMullen,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Plow,
Yes.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Moving on to item number 13, policy 7421, restrooms, locker rooms, shower rooms, and changing rooms. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Does anybody have any discussion on this
This
policy?
policy, I know some people have raised some concerns that maybe this was done hastily, received some emails, but this is done, this has to be in place by March 1st, correct? In order
Well, the
to-
law goes
25th.
into effect
in order
the
to
25th.
to make sure that we are in compliance with state law. So this is not something that was done hastily or without input. This is not discriminatory. It's inclusive. The state law is what the state law is.
The only input I would like to have, I know there's a lot of plans already in motion, but you have some students who have expressed explicit interest in helping come up with ideas that are also safe emotionally for students. I am also very invested in this one as well, that I have several ideas as well. We would like to be included.
Any other discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Plow?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 14, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, are you gonna walk us through this? Just
This is just separated out right now, and we'll be moving forward just because of.
the conflict of interest? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Conflict, so Eddie won't be voting.
okay. Any discussion?
So why is it a conflict of interest for Eddie? Just for,
His wife is there.
okay, all right.
All right, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Plow?
Yes.
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Abstain.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes. Motion passes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 15, review of action steps. I believe you had a couple, I think you mentioned something for, what was your request? I can't remember it.
The
The
live stream.
live stream.
Okay,
Further discussion.
so we're gonna add that to the special meeting, have a discussion?
No.
Could we do it there?
If necessary, yeah.
I don't have one.
I'm saying if we schedule, I know we don't have one set, but I'm saying if we schedule one, would you guys like to add that to the agenda?
Yeah, that would be
I
fun.
think that'd be appropriate as
Makes
long as
sense.
it's long enough for Dr. Banks to.
Okay. So we can add that on for next month. All right. Item number 17, announcements. The next regular meeting of the Finneytown Board of Education will take place on Monday, March 17, 2025, Brent Board Office Meeting Room, 8791 Brent Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45231. Open forum will begin at 6 o'clock p.m. All right, and we are going to be going into executive session. Item number 16, in the ordinance, I said ordinance, I'm sorry, in accordance of ORC 121.22G1, in order to consider the employment of public employees of the district. All right,
We need a motion.
can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right,
And then we need a vote, right?
Yeah.
Do we vote?
Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
yes,
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Plow?
motion passes. We are in executive session. Thanks for coming, everybody.